Hi, good evening, and welcome to tonight's edition of Fact Sheet, live on ATV, live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, also live on Nisin 95.9 and 100.1 in Bogatanga and Tamale. Tonight we're here to talk about education. Education not in terms of the literal sense of the word education, but in terms of the literary arts, in terms of our history, in terms of our socio-political lives, and in terms of poetry. And I'm fortunate to have a guest with me who has a deeper understanding, appreciation of these issues we're going to be talking about. He's a renowned poet. He's won several awards. He's taught in Nigeria, he's taught in Libya, he's taught in Ghana, and presently is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Department of English. And he'll be sharing some thoughts and insights with us when it comes to the literary arts. And so tonight on Fact Sheet, our focus is going to be on the literary arts. He understands post-colonial issues, and so issues to do with the IMF and the fact that we tell ourselves repeatedly, cyclical as it's become, we've gone to the IMF several times. What could be the underlying issues in terms of our politics? You throw light on these issues for us. And so I'm privileged tonight to be speaking to a very renowned individual on Fact Sheet. My name, once again, is Samuel Chen, and the pleasure is all mine to welcome you to the conversation. We'll have a quick turnaround, and when we come back, I'll introduce my guest to you. Do stay with us. And you're welcome back to Fact Sheet Live on ETV. I would like to hear your thoughts, your views, even as we have the conversation. And so you can just quickly dash to Facebook and share your thoughts with us. Our handle is ETV Ghana, and you can share your thoughts with us. For those of you who are monitoring us live on radio in the northern parts of the country on Nisi 95.9 and 100.1, I'll be glad to read your comments, even as we have the conversation tonight. So my guest tonight is Dr. Maoli Ajay. Like I said, very much renowned. He's won several awards and he's written several books, and he has an understanding of the issues we're going to be talking about tonight. And he is hosting us in his house. Good evening, sir, and thank you very much for the opportunity to have this conversation with you.
My pleasure. Good evening.
And welcome. Thank you so much. And how has life been treating you?
Well, just like you are also, braving through. We are managing.
Interesting.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about you as an individual, and your quest and the journey you embarked upon to become a renowned writer, a renowned poet, achieving so much in that space. What drove you in that direction?
Well, I realized at a very tender age that I had a flair for writing or the literary arts. And it started way back in elementary school when I won a district essay competition, Bando district essay competition, at age 13 and a half. And that set me motivated some kind of way that I needed to pursue, explore, develop that talent. And when I went to secondary school, literature was my favorite subject, and poetry in particular. And again, I won a Southern Volta Award in poetry in 1975 when I was in, so that was the motivation. I feel that that's my career path, that's my calling, and I need to pursue it. That's how come I find myself teaching literature, English, cultural studies, post-colonial studies, across the spectrum of the education system, and I've been at it for the past 24 years at the highest level, that is University of Ghana English Department. So I enjoy what I do.
Interesting that you enjoy what you do, especially when you take me back into your life as a young man. Because at the time, if you asked any young man what he wanted to do, the first thing that would come into his mind is, oh, I want to be a lawyer, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a pharmacist. What drove you once again? to go in that space, seeing that every child's dream was to become either a medical doctor or a lawyer or something like that?
Well, I didn't have that problem because my path was clearly cut for me. I knew what I wanted to do, and I went in for it. From secondary school, O level, A level, university, I knew what exactly I wanted to do. So when at a point I found myself outside that sphere, that circuit, I knew there was something missing, and I needed to, go back to where I belong. And that is what has driven my relationship with my children as well. Two of my children, I have three boys. Two of them are, in the creative arts.
Okay.
Salah, Dr. J, who lectures at University of Media and Communication Studies, is a multimedia artist, is a painter. He just held an exhibition last week. He's still running till 25th of this month. I encouraged him when I saw that about primary school age, he was interested in drawing, painting. I encouraged him. Of course, when you go to secondary school, this stigma about those, studying visual arts are, not people to be respected, and those pursuing the sciences and all those things. But I encourage him, and today he has no regrets. I have no regrets. His younger brother also studied visual arts. He is a top fashion designer in Paris today. He actually went to the Paris International Fashion Academy, took a first degree in, So I think the creative art runs in my blood, in my family. And this is why I'm where I am, doing poetry, writing, teaching, and everything. And it comes with a certain orientation, a certain upbringing. I'm at heart, an African, a Pan-African. I am immersed in African culture, African traditions, and it flows through everything I do. I don't bear an English name. I discarded my so-called Christian name long ago in secondary school when people were actually taking 3, 4 English names. I dropped mine. So there's no English name on any of my certificates from O level till my PhD. None of my children bears an English name.
At the time you decided to drop your English name, what was your father's reaction when he decided to drop it?
He didn't even know. I didn't discuss it with him.
Okay.
He would never have, because, I mean, it was a status thing. People had been kind of brainwashed to believe that you needed some kind of status symbol, which would be having a Christian name, even if it makes no meaning to you, and taking some Anglo-Saxon surname as something, Christian. I didn't understand it, and I started questioning it very early in my childhood. So by the time we got to O level, I decided I was going to drop mine, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. And at home, even though I have taught English all my life, we don't speak English at home.
Wow.
We speak Ewe. I don't speak English to my children. Right from infancy, I brought them up to admire and appreciate their cultural identity, their origins. And I took them home to the village often. And they are thankful to me today for giving them that upbringing, immersing them in a certain African cultural identity, which they have grown to appreciate. So that's the kind of person I am.
I'm intrigued about the point you made about their upbringing and the fact that you didn't speak English with them in the house, but you spoke the Ewe language with them. That's the opposite, which is happening today.
Exactly.
I'm wondering how easy or difficult it would have been for them. Because when they get to school, they are taught in the English language, and then when they come home, it's only the Ewe language they would be hearing. Didn't that in any way impede their studies?
No. Ironically, paradoxically, even though English is not a medium of communication at home for my children, they are very, very competent users of English. Even the first boy who was a science student, is currently, outside the country doing another science, master's degree in cyber security, management. JSS O level, he got top grades in English. The one after him, um, they can do poorly in mathematics or whatever. But when it comes to English, including even the fashion designer, they are all top users of English. So it's not a question of creating an English-speaking environment at home for you to bring up children to do well. And it's a kind of, again, brainwashing where we have been conditioned to believe and think that proficiency in English is a mark of scholarship. That if you cannot speak English, so today we have semi-literates speaking bad English to their children because they think that, again, it's a status symbol thing. We have university professors indulging in this kind of thing. There are homes where I have friends and even in some cases relatives, and ever married to an ever, and their children speak no word of ever. It's all English or account or whatever. It cannot happen in my house. It has never happened, and I'm proud that I've been able to mold my children along this path. Um, in school, peer pressure and all those things, people may stigmatize them from being who they are, the way they were. But I don't think it affected them. I don't think it affected them.
But this is not just a matter that is operationalized in the homes. This is a national conversation because in our schools, we are taught in English. And I remember growing up, we were told it was boldly written on the compound. You don't speak tree, you don't speak fanti, you don't speak ever on campus. And if you did so, your name would be written and you'd be lashed. This is the kind of
Yes.
upbringing we saw. And so for you, witnessing all these over the years, what's been the feeling for you?
Um, I combined my first degree, English, with linguistics, and my appreciation of language as a carrier of culture, a people's worldview, their values, the philosophies that have shaped their lives. I appreciate it very much. So the problem, the tragedy, the national tragedy is that our education is actually pushing our children to alienate themselves from their mother tongue and by extension, their culture. What is the trend now? We have a lot of elite schools, secondary schools, that are teaching or offering curricula based on British or American education system. And in those schools, I'm not trying to criticize anybody for setting up such schools. I mean, it's a choice. Um, but what it does is that it creates a certain mindset in the children based on the curricula. Um, because, I mean, British curriculum, American, curriculum will be based on, a certain cultural, um, political, historical construction. And these are the things those students imbibe. And they quickly, or they are very eager to disown their national identity or their cultural identity. And they set themselves apart from the ordinary, students who go to the mainstream public schools. I am not condemning, such things, but I'm saying that it's driving us towards a point of cultural extinction. Because tied to this whole thing is the neo-colonial imperialist agenda. And these are some of the devices, the disguises, through which our former oppressors, our former colonizers, are perpetuating their dominance. What's the best way of controlling a person? His mind. Brainwash education. And it's like even our national education policies are buying into this kind of thing. What is the emphasis on teaching mother tongue in our schools? There are schools where from kindergarten, the medium of instruction is English. And if they make some, a hazy attempt at trying to introduce or teach, it's an appendage. And it's, done in such a way that even the students, the children, do not see it as something, that attracts them. So we have a big problem. But the national language thing, the language of, who was the last governor? Was it Gadisberg or whatsoever? At that time, even the colonial education, policy, there was emphasis on mother tongue education. But after independence, we rather said that we didn't need that. So we do not have a strong national language policy that drives our education. And this is what is making us drift, into some other kind of cultural orbit, which will entrench our slavish mentality, the way we think, the way we do things. And it manifests in our politics, our national politics, everything, that we do. I remember 2000 election, one of the things that took center stage was whether a presidential candidate was a Christian, a practicing Christian. And in those days, I asked myself, what has this got to do with political leadership in Africa? You have to be a Christian. And it has gone on in other guises till today. So it's a multi, faceted kind of situation we find ourselves in, and getting out of it is going to be a big trouble. It will take some doing.
Well, seeing that you express these strong views about how English has become the dominant, means of communication, I would expect that in your period of being in academia, some effort would have gone into sensitizing and then to disabusing people's mind on these issues that you raise so vehemently. Are there traits of these steps?
Well, for my part, I incorporate these things in my teaching. Literature is the mother of all subjects because literature incorporates just about every subject. Religion, history, philosophy, culture, just name it. And in teaching literature, you are not just teaching, what is there on a printed page, a poem, a story, or whatsoever. You are teaching a whole way of life. And for me, the cultural imperative takes center stage. And the courses that I've taught at the English department, they are all, geared towards that. I teach African poetry, oral literature, post-colonial literature, creative writing, folklore, just name it. These are subjects I enjoy teaching because of the cultural component and because of the opportunity it gives me to try to educate my students. But most times, you hit a stone wall because the students are already fossilized mentally against the very things that you are teaching them. There was a time I was teaching uh, oral literature, and one of the topics was myth and mythology, and as part of it there was something to do with creation myth, and I ventured to suggest that all cultures, all societies, all literatures have their myths, particularly creative, creation myths. And I made reference to the Genesis segment of the Bible as a Judeo-Christian creation myth. And the class, half of the class was up in arms against me for making that suggestion. Because of their Christian upbringing, they can denigrate other religions, but you can't touch Christianity in any way. You cannot say that the Fulani creation myth, uh, which says life came into being with a gigantic drop of milk from the sky because they are pastoral people. Yeah, they accept that. That's their creation myth. But the moment you say the Genesis story of how the world came into being, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the God, blah, blah, blah. The moment you say anything contrary to that, you are in trouble. Okay? But I am not deterred by those things. I try to push my teaching because I don't only have 3 degrees in English, I also have a master's degree in African studies. So my entire background is geared towards projecting my Africanness in teaching, in my writing, and everything I do. And it's a sad reflection and a negation of the things that Nkrumah tried to do with us as a people. We have negated all that. We are back to the old path we were on when we were a colonized people. That's the way I say it.
Well, we'll take a short breather. When we come back, there are 2 or 3 very important questions I would ask because he delved or ventured into the space of religion, Christianity, and then other faiths. You know the story of Archbishop Charles Agyinasare and the Nogopo issue. I'll seek his thoughts on that matter. And then the concept of, you know, society evolving and why it's difficult for others to accept that we are an evolving culture. And so there's definitely going to be a mix. We'll talk about all of these things in a bit. Do stay with us. And you're welcome back to Fact Sheets Live on ETV, live on Nisin 95.9 and 100.1. Also live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. My guest tonight is Dr. Maoli Ejay, and we're talking about a myriad of issues. And Doc, before we went for the break, you had ventured into the space of religion, faiths, and the experience you had in a lecture room where you had touched on the matter of creation, and your students were not happy about it. Have you followed the issue of Bishop Charles Agyinasare and Nogopo and the developments there? Have you followed it?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I have been very passionate about this issue. And I have had very, very strong words for friends, other associates who have taken a certain view of this that I find unfortunate. Um, Again, I call it neo-charismatic madness.
New charismatic madness.
The way in which people have arrogated to themselves on the basis of their Christian religious faith, a certain kind of entitlement that we are superior in our faith to any other faith. And I ask myself, well, my teaching academic practice has taken me to a lot of countries, and I've lived among Muslims in Nigeria, in Libya, in Tunisia, and I was asking myself, would a Janissary go to Libya or Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, look them in the face and say the kind of things he said about Nogopo people? I can't even draw the line. Whether he's talking about a traditional religion or the townsfolk or the town or whatsoever, I don't know what actually the motivation was. Look, after this conversation, go to any search engine, Google, Wikipedia, Chat, GPT, any dictionary, and look for the word shrine, what it means. It means a holy place. In any English dictionary, in any encyclopedia, a place of veneration for a faith. But the moment you mention shrine in Ghana, Africa, it's about demons. It's about Satan or satanic, You cannot use the word shrine for the holy places of, Christianity. I may be right or wrong. The Kaaba in Mecca is a holy place. So it's a shrine. It's an Islamic shrine. There is nothing derogatory about the word shrine. Its connotation and denotation, it's all about holiness, veneration, a sacred place, a place for pilgrimage, for saints and other things. But our Christian brothers have kind of dichotomized adherence to faith into we and they. We are pursuing the true God, any other faith, particularly traditional African faith. I think Duncan Williams did a similar thing some time ago, but he had the humility to go and apologize to the people. But I'm seeing the poster of this boy. I call him a boy because there is so much infantile, posturing about what was the motivation.
Well,
I know Nogopo very well. It's a very peaceful town, just like any town anywhere. And my question is, I lived on the mountains before, the Akwapim Mountain. I spent time in Manfi, Ekropon, Latte, Nifa. I know those places very well. What about the Akunedi Shrine at is it Latte? Does that make Latte the headquarters, the demonic headquarters of Akwapim State or the Eastern region or Ghana for that matter? What about where Antoine is? Is that the demonic headquarters? Greater Accra, even the national capital. There are shrines. There are places of traditional worship. Do they, so this whole thing, I don't understand it. But it's all due to religious brainwashing.
but could it not be that because it's a spiritual matter and you are unable to appreciate the spiritual workings, that's how come you find it difficult to believe that indeed it may be the headquarters of demonic activities? Maybe he's seen it in the spiritual realm. Maybe he's encountered demons having their meetings there.
Can you take this to a court of law? You defame a person when you are asked to defend your position, you say it's a spiritual matter. You are using the intangible against the tangible. The intangible is the spiritual angle you are harping on. But the tangible aspect is the fact that you have hurt a whole group of people, a society. And I don't get it. Look, and the reason he preached against demons and witches, is it a plow? And on their way back to Agbozume, one of his pastors had
Bust.
and Nogopo. And because of that, it cannot be the nature of the road. It cannot be the ill health of the vehicle. It must be the demons that they have preached against at Aflau who were up in arms. Then, of course, you are giving credence to their power. If they can remove four tires from your pastors, then don't they have some power? Are you not conceding in a way that, look, it's easy to dwell on the spiritual and say that, oh, this is in the spiritual realm, blah, 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 blah. Can you go to court and be talking, spirituality? You see, and I'm saying that they do this to traditional religion. Why must Nogopo be stigmatized? I have studied traditional religion. In the past, Krachi, the town Krachi, made its name because of the Krachi Dente shrine. The people were so proud of the shrine that the name Dente, the Dente worship, traditional worship, was synonymous with the town. So they don't just call it Dente. They call it Krachi Dente. And the people have never, moved against it because, these religious faiths, they stand for something that the people relate to. Who are you to come and be? And my worry is that traditional religions, faiths, and their practitioners, they don't go demonizing Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or the Baha'i faith or Zoroastrianism, Shintoism, or whatsoever. They just focus on, but this entitlement that we are superior, that is what makes, and they cannot do this to other religions. They do it to African traditional religion. And I'm saying that it is a part of the neo-colonial, imperialist, hangover. We have people who are now doing for the former colonial masters and overdoing it. Britain, many of the cathedrals, even though we are now trying to build a national cathedral, have been turned into museums, some clubhouses for striptease and other things. Just about 4 or 5 months ago, it was declared that Christianity was no longer the national religion of Britain. The people who brought the Christian religion to us are moving away from it. And it is now we have, embraced it, and we are taking it to absurd levels. It's a colonial mentality. It's a slave, mentality. Let me use the derogatory term. I see Ajinasari and his likes as in the slave trade era, house niggers.
But that would be too harsh.
Yes, because do you know what the house niggers did? They were in the good books of the slave master,
Indeed.
and then they helped the slave master oppress their own, So I don't get it.
But you are talking about, whether he could. I've seen the same Bishop Charles Ajinasari in India. I've seen him in other places where, they have a strict adherence to a certain faith. And he's going to have crusades there where, per what he says, the power of his God has been manifested. People who were lame are walking, people who couldn't see can see, people who couldn't talk are talking, and several other miracles. So it's not just a matter of he being.
When he was in India, did he attack Hinduism?
Well, not that I know.
So where is the analogy you are drawing? He can preach anywhere. Let him preach his faith. He should not, go condemning any other faith, for that matter.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
So if he says that the headquarters of demons, is, let's say, sphincters, does it make the people who are living here demonic?
Can you go and identify the demons on Switzer's road for me? If you can't, you have no argument. You have no basis.
But is that not what religion is about? Because if I came to your shrine, sir, if I came to your shrine,
Yes.
and you are performing your rites,
Yes.
and you are telling me that the gods are saying this, I would not have heard. I would not have seen what you see,
Yes.
or hear what you hear.
Yes.
But I believe in what you're telling me, and so I act upon what you're telling me. Is that not what spiritism and spirituality is about? We don't see, but we believe.
The problem with the new charismatic group that I'm talking about, or the madness about the new charismatic, practices, they can't draw a line between religion and spirituality. What Ajinasari and co are doing is religiosity, religious jingoism, fundamentalism, the kind that drives some people, to go and bomb, churches in Pakistan and other places.
Is there any evidence like that?
That
That fundamentalism and extremism. Is there any evidence like that where they are preaching and they are teaching people these things?
my understanding of fundamentalism is this idea that my religion is the only religion. And I've encountered this everywhere. I was teaching in Libya, and knowing me to be a Christian, those days when I professed the Christian religion, my students were not happy with me. They even asked that I change my name from Mauli to Ahmed. And they were actually calling me Ahmed because they don't recognize Christianity. It's an act of fundamentalism. What makes them think that Islam is what do we say? Christ is the only way. It's the same thing. In Islam, they don't even recognize Christianity.
There's a very crucial question I need to ask you because you have once been a Christian.
Yes.
What are you now?
I'm just now a free radical, if you like.
You're a free radical?
Yes.
What turned you away from Christianity?
People like Ajinasari and the idea of people imposing a foreign culture on me in the name of religion. I see Christianity as an Anglo-Saxon, cultural construction that was used as a pretext for colonizing Africa.
If I get the story you told me from your secondary school days,
Yes.
until now, I would picture you as a young man who has a very open mind, and so would be careful as to what faith he subscribes to. And so for that young man who would have gone through the secondary school system, go to university, I don't know when you recanted Christianity, but if it's, let's say, 5 years ago, if it's about 10 years ago, I would be surprised that that young man who was very much well informed subscribed to Christianity, and to 10 years ago or 5 years ago that he recanted.
Why would you be surprised?
Yes, because I perceive you to be as a well-read individual, well-informed individual in matters of tradition, in matters of culture, in matters of the literary arts, in matters of language, which you say is a bedrock of our culture.
Yes.
And so I would be surprised, especially when you chose to change your name and remove that Christian name to keep only Maoli and a J.
Yes.
I'd be surprised why you subscribe to that faith.
It's a choice that an individual makes at a point in time. In his, and again, I'm talking about the line between religion and spirituality.
Okay.
It's a choice that the individual makes at a point in his spiritual development. I got to a point where I was immersing myself in a certain spiritual growth, which was at variance with, the teachings and practice of Christianity. I am a history student. I read American history in sixth form. I read about what so-called Christians did to fellow human beings. The people who brought the religion here, what they did to us and continue to do to us. I ask myself, come on, people say, just take the religion, take the message, forget about the messenger. Please, the messenger is as important as the message. I don't believe in that.
At what point did you stop being a Christian? At what point?
Long ago, I can't put a particular date or time on it. But I got so dissatisfied with Christianity and its practice, and particularly the people who are in the forefront of propagating the faith here on the African continent. Religion is a tool of manipulation. Do you understand? Whether it's traditional African religion or Christianity or Islam, religion can be used. We have fought religious wars in the past. Do you understand? The jihads, the crusades, it's all because people want to use religion. People can hide behind religion and do all kinds of atrocious things. Do you understand? And it's not peculiar to any particular religion. I must be open-minded about that.
Well, I'm looking at your book,
Yes.
Taboo,
Yes.
Conflict, Illicit Relationships, Unresolved Murders, Suspense.
Yes.
And I'm taking you back to the point I was making about culture,
Yes.
language
Yes.
being an evolving thing. To the point where chococy, which is a cultural thing, is no more. Female genital mutilation is no more. The markings on people's faces, they are all things that are fading out of the system because of, for want of a better word, enlightenment and evolution and the dynamic nature of culture. In that respect, your position on language and how we are being neo-colonized as a result of our predominance on English and all, it's not too far-fetched.
Um, I did a bit of cultural studies as well as my part of study of folklore. There's something we call cultural relativity.
Okay.
That at a point in time, what is in vogue becomes a taboo. People no longer adhere to it. But I'm surprised you are talking about female genital mutilation no longer in practice. Go to societies where it's part of their traditional makeup. Go to Egypt, for instance, and see. It's still very much practiced. And the people who carry out the mutilation are women, not men.
Well, I was talking in our context as
Yes.
Ghana.
Yes. As for facial markings, scarification, tribal marks, and those things, yeah, I saw it in Nigeria. I lived in Yoruba area, and in the early 80s, when I was there, it was no longer an attraction to any family. Only about a third of the student population had tribal marks. The succeeding generation or the new generation, they no longer, yes, those things are fading. But that is all about cultural relativity I'm talking about. We actually tie it to time. We say cultural and temporal relativity. There comes a time when things change. Human thinking, changes. The people who are forcing us now to embrace homosexuality, they were the ones who wrote it into our statutes. They are the ones who presented us with, the main Christian document, which is the Bible, which says homosexuals, do not deserve to live. Today, these same people are saying that those verses in the Bible that condemn homosexuality are no longer relevant because there's a new thinking. Does it make it right? It's all has to tell you about social dynamics. It goes with, a change of mind regarding certain issues. So, who knows? I was telling somebody the other time, one of my female students, who wore an exaggerated hair attachment. And I was joking, I joke about these things in class a lot, that it doesn't make you look who you are. And do you know where the hair attachment you are using comes from? Some dead or some woman in India who has donated her hair to, a god or a goddess. And I said that in terms of cultural relativity or temporal relativity, it will get to a point where our women will start braiding their hair again. True. Or low crop hair or that kind of thing. It's going to happen.
Yeah, so there is also a possibility that
Yes.
we may get to a point where traditional religion will surface again and become the predominant faith, especially
Yes.
after the people have had the taste of a faith like Christianity. Now, the reason I'm saying this is this. Now, since this matter of Archbishop Ajina Sari came up, questions people have been asking, legitimate as they may be, are that how is it that when you get to places where they practice their traditional religion, theft, adultery, and all the other sins, as we may call them,
Yes.
don't surface.
Yes.
And so we may wake up one morning and people would say, okay, we think that it's about time we retraced our roots and went here and go and look for their gods.
Yeah.
But until then, society is evolving, not so.
I listened to, and I cite this example many, many times when I'm teaching things to do with cultural identity. I make reference to a Bob Marley interview I saw many years ago. And what was it? That was when the British reggae group, UB40, was making the waves. And Bob Marley spent some time in the UK. And there was this interview that, look, a white reggae group has just, and he just laughed. He said, anybody at all can copy reggae, but they cannot play reggae. Because reggae is Jamaica and Jamaica is reggae. Reggae is the soul of Jamaica. You cannot do it better than the Jamaicans. So the people who have taken over Christianity and are trying to be holier than the Pope, it will get to a point where because in every kind of institution, there is the self-destruct mechanism inbuilt. We are almost there. Because the likes of, is it Agrada or whatsoever, or what, people are seeing through their, disguises that these are not people who are representing God. She can take me to court. I don't care. You can edit this part of the conversation. I don't care. But this Ajinasari thing, I saw something on social media. He said Ajinasari should leave Nogopo to her. She would deal with Nogopo her own way. And people know that these are people pretending to be acting on behalf of God. And we also do know that they are acting on behalf of anything but God. So it will come to a point where the people will see through all these things, see that, look, why don't we go to the old book called diviners, what you call fetish priests, even though, again, that is a neo-colonial term, or the imperialist term, cultural imperialist term, fetish. Somebody's religion is fetish, if you know the origin of the word fetish. Why don't we go back to those people? Because they are the original custodians of what those who claim to be practicing Christianity are doing now. And I can tell you, I know of pastors who have gone to the so-called demonic places that are Ajinasari, to go and fortify themselves. Go and ask them. Go and do a research.
We are rounding up our conversation. We have just about 3 more minutes to end our conversation, and I want us to talk about the West that store our culture, the West that store our history. You said one of these West is language, the poetry.
Mainly,
the poetry.
Poetry is language.
The music. And cool. Where are they? The poetry. How many poets are there? How many people are interested in the poetry? Seeing that if you graduate from the University of Ghana and you want to do any of the literary arts, the thinking is, what job are you going to do? Because it's all about how you're going to feed. So how do we keep the culture, seeing that it's West, our language, music, the poetry, our dance, and more?
Again, is temporal relativity. Things are changing. In our time, those who were offering what today we call theater arts were looked down upon. They said, oh, we're studying dondology, because they reduced the study of the performing arts to playing the xylophone, drums, dondoso. They didn't have any respect from the rest of the university community. But those are the things that carry our culture. I will look down on them. Before the late Prof. Awuno became a born-again African literary, icon. Well, he himself told me that in their university days, when they started practicing poetry, they were conducting competitions among themselves to see who could be, a better W.B. Yeats or Alfred Lord Tennyson or any of the great English tradition poets. They were trying to mimic English poetry until when he himself started writing, composing poems. And his first anthology is titled Rediscovery, going back to his roots of poetic, inspiration, the oral tradition, traditional poetry, and that has influenced him and later Kofi Anyidoho. Atuku Okan, why do we celebrate him? Because he came back from Russia and saw that Russians were so much attached to their culture through their literature, particularly oral poetry. And he got fascinated. So when he came back, he knew it was just a kind of rediscovery. He had to go back to the roots of poetry in Africa, which is the spoken word that is dramatized. He calls it total art, music, word, dance, drama, and everything. So if we can get our new generation to continue developing this, as I speak, Awuno, Ayinoho, and Atuku Okan, they blazed the trail. Are we following in their path? Are we following in their path? Because media, images, and other things, or external cultural influences that have seeped into the literary, landscape as well, is shaping our generation. But I can say that, with pride, that Prof. Anyidoho, Prof. Awuno, and myself, the three of us handle creative writing at the English department. We have produced some very, very talented, enthusiastic young men who are practicing poetry the way it should be practiced. I'm talking about Nana Asase, if you know him, Chief Momen, and co. They pass through our hands, and we are proud that they, in turn, may influence their generation to also tap a bit into our traditional, literary systems. Right. I try to do that a lot in my writing. It's all about culture. All my books, it's all about culture. Here, you're talking about taboo. It's not taboo in the sense in which, again, it's about a Catholic priest from a Nogopo type of, society who becomes a Catholic priest. But he fails as a priest and has to go back to his roots to even go and make confession about how he has failed as a priest and that kind of thing. So it's a very, very enlightening kind of conversation with you. You've provoked me to say, things that I've held in my heart for a very long time, looking for, I say these things with friends, but for a viewing public, maybe this is just the beginning of the conversation.
And this might be it. I'm grateful, sir, that you ushered us into your beautiful home and you've had this conversation with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for coming.
And this has been a very, very interesting conversation with Doc. I'm hoping that you enjoyed it. And it's not ending here because, like he rightly said, this is the beginning. Thank you very much for being a part of tonight's show. On behalf of the crew, we would like to say have a pleasant evening. Good evening.